Hey guys, in this Casually Criterion episode, we are going to review The Third Man. But before that, we are talking about The Mandalorian Season 3 premiere. So, join us!
Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me as always is Mike. I just have to say, I don't have a question, but Mike is recording at like a slightly tilted angle. He's recording at a Dutch angle.
It's really a Dutch recording, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Dutch recording, made up by him himself. You can't tell, but like the sound is just gonna, if you have surround sound on, like really good surround sound, it'll be coming from lower on your right side and higher on your left.
If you hear it, you hear it,
Yeah. Yeah. Also with us is our musically attuned friend. Out of the three of us, he does the most music. He is tuning his Zittar. Justin, how are you doing today? Also, I guess I should have asked Mike how he was doing, but we'll get to that. Justin, how are you doing?
It's too late now.
Hello, how good hit? That's Dutch for hi, how are you?
Wow, I didn't know you spoke that.
How cultured of you.
Yeah. I speak a little Dutch, about 4 words of Dutch.
Awesome. Well, that was new to us. Mike, do you have any other languages that you speak? And how are you?
Yeah. No, nada. Yeah.
Good.
All right.
my Zittar's tuned to not totally ignore your little prompt there. I would love to play a Zittar, though, for real.
That was a lot of strings. Seems kind of crazy, but
it was. It also, I don't think, actually matches up with the music, but that's maybe a discussion to be had at another time if we want to dig that deep.
Sure. Yeah. That's another podcast. Mm-hmm. All right, and if this is your first time listening, this is a Casually Criterion episode, which we like to do every other episode, but not really, where we review a film from the Criterion collection that is voted on by the listeners via our Twitter page. So before we get into the main review, we'll be doing our usual News on the March, where we talk about what we've been watching, so if you haven't seen the movie, you can still listen. Then we move into the Casually Criterion review for The Third Man, spine number 64. It'll all be time-stamped in your show notes.
That's right. And as Mike said, you can vote for the Criterion films that we're reviewing on our Criterion episodes. Follow us on Twitter to do that. That's where we put the poll out. Follow us there at Casual Cinecast. You can also send us messages to that account, questions about the movie. You can also email us at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And then, of course, if you haven't done so already, you like the show, you want to let us know you like the show, give us a review, 5 stars, thumbs up, whatever. It also helps other people find the show, puts us up there in the rankings, which I'm sure most people know, because everybody has a podcast. Yeah. So you guys
that.
know.
We don't need to explain
Everybody
that to
has
you.
a podcast.
Yeah. Okay, and with that, I think it's time to move into the next segment where we talk about what we've been watching.
Yep.
All right, let's do it.
Go.
You on the mark!
All right, Justin. What have you been up to since last you were on the show, which has been 2 weeks now?
Oh, yeah, I did miss a week.
You did. Well, you didn't really, because you sent in a recording of your thoughts, but...
That's true. That took me like 5 minutes, though, instead of like an hour and a half like it normally does.
Yeah, it's very efficient to do a solo podcast, it seems.
Yeah. Should do that more often. Save myself some time. So the last week, I haven't watched a ton of new stuff other than one of the other things we're going to talk about. But what I did do was guest on another podcast, one that I've guested on.
What podcast?
I'm trying to tell you. One that I've guested on several times, one that we've all guested on, I think, a few times each. But that is the CineMusts podcast.
Good podcast.
Yeah. And Mike of the CineMusts podcast has been on this one several times, but he brought me on to determine if another movie is a CineMust or CineBust or CineTrust, as they do over there. But the movie we did this time was Spike Lee's directorial debut, She's Gotta Have It. And have either of you guys seen this movie?
No, I cannot wait to listen to this episode to hear your thoughts on it, but I am conflicted on whether or not I should watch the movie first.
I would watch the movie first, I think.
Yeah?
Just not that there's like it's super spoilery or anything like that. I mean, the discussion is we go really in depth, but like then there's nothing that would ruin the movie, I guess, if it was spoiled.
Sure.
But I think it would be more fun to watch without any sort of expectations of what's coming.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this has always been like on my list of Spike Lee movies that like I really want to watch, but which like is a longer list than I would like it to be. I'm ashamed to say.
Yeah. My list is long too, and this made it one shorter though, so I was very happy to be able to do that. And the reason that we did this film, just to kind of go back, is that the last time I was on, we themed our movie choice off of this book called Colorization: 100 Years of Black History in Cinema. And Mike from CineMusts and I had both read that, and we decided to pick a film from that that is also in the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die, that's the list that they choose their movies from on that podcast. And I don't know if you could call it a smart choice or a wise choice, but the first episode we did based on the book was on Birth of a Nation, which is obviously a horrendous depiction of black people in cinema and damaging beyond cinema, right? Beyond the theater to black people and to black people's in America. So we decided to, like, rather than just call it done at Birth of a Nation based on this book that is, both telling the story and celebrating black achievements in cinema, we decided to bookend it and go with a film from a black filmmaker, something positive. And so that's how we ended up with She's Gotta Have It.
Yeah, I think you pretty much owe it to yourself after watching Birth of a Nation as your kickoff to that.
Yeah, that was a smart choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we got to end on a positive note, and this is a positive note. Chris, I don't know if you answered. Did you see this?
I have not seen this yet. I think anything from CineMusts is a must listen. So I'm going to have to watch it and check out the episode.
Yeah, I won't tell you how we voted, because we on the episode, like on the show, we each, the guest host and Mike, vote CineBus, CineTrust, or CineMust, which are exactly what they sound like, and then they put it out to a listener vote and kind of add everything up and officially decide what the movie is. So, but I won't spoil how we voted. But I will say that I really like this movie a lot. I think it's great. It's awesome to see Spike Lee doing his first thing on a very low budget, but the energy that he has as a filmmaker, plus the knowledge of film history that he has and the references and the influence that is coming from cinema history, as a film person, is really, really fun to watch. On top of it just being a pretty enjoyable sort of comedy movie, but not without anything to say type comedy.
That's good, actually, to hear you say that, because I know that while I don't think you've ever drawn a line in the sand and said that you don't like Spike Lee, I know there are a few Spike Lee movies that you definitely like more than others.
Yeah, it's definitely been a mixed bag, and to be fair, most of the things that I haven't liked has been his more recent stuff, or this, at least like that didn't click with me. But when I have gone back to his older stuff, stuff like 25th Hour and Do the Right Thing, I liked those a whole lot. And this one I also liked a whole lot. I don't think it's quite as good as Do the Right Thing. It's a lot more raw. The acting's a little rougher. The quality of film is a little bit lower. Like literally the film quality, like the noise and the grain in the image.
Sure.
It's like lower in quality in most places. But I think you guys would actually really like this movie. And I'm also curious, he remade it as a Netflix series recently too. Like I think
interesting.
2 to 3 years ago. And I haven't watched that yet.
Is it got the same title?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just called She's Gotta Have It.
Is it the same story, or is it like a sequel?
I think it's the same story, same character names, just different cast. Like he's just redone it. And there's reasons he's redone it, because the story of the film is that there's a woman named Nola Darling, and she's having a simultaneous relationships, like sexual relationships with 3 different men. And she's very open about it, and she's not committed to any one of them. But the guys aren't as cool with that, basically.
Sure.
Right? So it's actually, for a film that came out in 1986, it feels like very, very positive in terms of like feminism, you know?
Yeah.
On top of being just a new sort of positive portrayal of black people that weren't like, it wasn't black people being criminals or involved with drugs, like, you know, that sort of like blaxploitation,
sure,
sort of cliche that black people were given at the time, right? So it's got a lot of forward thinking, but there are some things that are probably a little problematic about it, and some things that he's vocally come out and like regretted. So I think that's one of
the remake. I'm sure.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons he remade it, was to take out some of the stuff and maybe do it with I think it was made in like 2020 or 2021. So with like a very modern view. So I'm curious about it, but I think you guys would like the movie at the very least.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely add this to my list. I'm always looking for new Spike Lee stuff to add to my list because, like I said, my list of unwatched Spike Lee is embarrassingly long. Although I have seen a good amount, and I like most of what I've seen. I could always use more.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, go watch it. It is very, very short. I think it's like 80 minutes or something like that.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, so super easy to watch. I actually watched it twice just because it was so short. I was like, why not?
Yeah.
Just kidding. Actually, I watched it once by myself, and then I knew my wife would like it. So I was like, hey, watch this with me again before I record this episode. So I will have seen it twice, and she loved it. So
you're She's Gotta Have It expert now.
I would say so, yes. the definitive expert.
Yeah. Awesome.
Despite
cool.
not being a woman or being black.
Yeah. And having seen it only twice. Okay. Yeah. Anything else you want to say about your guest appearance on CineMusts or She's Gotta Have It?
Nope. Just go check it out wherever you listen to podcasts. And then go vote at CineMusts on Twitter.
I concur. CineMusts is a great podcast. Okay. All right. So next on the docket is something that just premiered as we record this earlier today at, I believe, 2 a.m. our time.
Yes.
And that is The Mandalorian, episode 1 of season 3. So, yeah, who wants to kick us off? Chris, you haven't talked at all very much, so why don't you kick us off? What'd you think of the first episode of season 3?
It was fun. I thought that there was 2 or 3 really great set pieces. There's a space sequence that I really liked. It's been a while since I've watched. I mean, when was Boba Fett? Was that was that last year or the year before?
It was it premiered December of 2021 and went through 2022 February, I think.
Okay,
yeah,
so it's been a while. Yeah. I liked a lot of the set pieces in here. One of the things I noticed that I also really liked, and I can't remember if it was a thing, it seemed like there was more aliens in here, different kinds of aliens.
Mando's always been chock full of aliens. I think it's like Andor that didn't have many aliens.
Okay, maybe that's true for sure. Andor didn't, but I don't know. I really liked. There's some cool, there's these little they were in which but there's some good interactions with Grogu. There's these little guys that fix androids that I really like.
And Zellans, yeah, they're from The Rise of Skywalker.
Oh,
the droid smiths, yeah.
Babu Frick was the one in Rise of Skywalker, right?
Yeah,
Babu Frick.
And I agree with you. They were awesome in this episode. Totally enjoyable.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think that the show did really well, and maybe they've always done this as well, and I think they have, but there's a good mix of I think Baba Frick was felt like, in my memory, because it's been a while since I've seen Rise of Skywalker, was mainly just CG. But I loved these little guys that, and it wasn't just these guys, there was a lot of practical effects, practical aliens that I really enjoyed. Now, the story kind of started off and covered a lot of new, I wouldn't say it covered a lot of new things, but it was like, all right, this is where we are now. You know, he's not a bounty hunter anymore, but these are the things that he's going to have to do.
Yeah, a lot of recap. It's almost like it was a season opener.
Sure. So it doesn't get into a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of cool, fun things in it. Yeah. What do you guys think? Well, Justin, what did you think?
I enjoyed it. I do think it was a little, I don't want to say slow, but like it just a lot of setup, right? We didn't really have a big, like sort of climactic scene. You know, I remember some of the earlier Mandalorian episodes, season 1, feel kind of like Mission of the Week type episodes.
I kind of miss that.
Where we went through a whole arc in like one place with new people. It wasn't like that 100% of the time, but we had some of that. This very much felt like, you know, part 1 of 10 or however many episodes we're going to have. Is it 10 or 8?
8.
Part 1 of 8. Then, and didn't really have that big build. Like, I was kind of surprised that it was over, you know, because I was like, oh, we're still building up to the big action scene before the end or something. So it definitely feels a little different, but I enjoyed it. There's a lot to grab. If you've seen like the animated shows, there's a couple of sequences that were, I don't know, they were really cool, or at least one that was really, really cool. Having just finished Rebels, that got me really excited, even though it's a scene that may not mean anything to anybody who hasn't seen that, and ultimately it may just be a cool thing that you saw, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, if you wanted to, it may not factor into the story in any way. And I don't necessarily want to say what that is out loud, but I don't know. I enjoyed it. It made me excited to see what the mission is this season, I assume, with Mando, where he's going to go, what he's trying to do. And it was fun to see Carl Weathers, I think, being his most Carl Weathers from Arrested Development that I've seen in a while. I kept getting those vibes as he's trying to convince Mando to settle down and, you know, you can get you a stipend.
Yeah, you got a stew going.
Yeah. Take a job from me. We'll get a stew going. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing to complain about. Just enjoyed it. Happy to see where we're going. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, like you guys said, it feels a bit slight, but then again, Mando episodes kind of always have. You know, they're always between like 30 minutes to like 50 minutes generally. And this, I think, is like right in the middle of like the 30-minute, 35-minute mark. And that's okay. I mean, I think it doesn't feel necessarily like nothing happened this episode. It catches us up. It kind of hints at a couple different quests that he's got going on, you know. And it kind of establishes like what happened in Book of Boba Fett if you didn't watch that. And also it establishes what happened to characters who got canceled in between seasons.
Oh, yeah. That was funny.
Yeah, it was funny. Yeah, all in all, it's not like reinventing the wheel. It's another solid Mando episode, I think.
Yeah, there are a couple of action sequences for sure.
There are, and some really great practical effects too. Like I really enjoyed the way the aliens looked this episode. There are some really cool creature designs, and I think they look really good. Like Chris said, I like the little aliens from The Rise of Skywalker. I think they're really funny. The whole scene of Grief Cargo, which is like Carl Weathers' character translating what they're saying,
even though he doesn't need to.
Yeah, it was like I think pretty comical and pretty fun.
Yeah.
And I like how they're building it up. And also, I will say that I noticed that Bo-Katan got a wig upgrade this season, and I couldn't be happier.
I didn't notice that, or maybe more so notice the poor wigsmanship in whatever episode she was in, whatever season that was.
I don't think it was bad, but like if you look at like a season 2 picture of Bo-Katan versus like what happened in this episode, you can definitely see a difference.
Yeah, maybe they could put a wig on her that was more higher in quality, but less stable, since she just sat in the throne the whole time and didn't get up.
Maybe so.
So they didn't have to make it sturdy of a wig.
Yeah. It's like, just don't move your head very much.
Yeah.
All in all, though, I will say that this show continues to understand the technology of the volume better than a lot of other projects that use the volume technology. and I say this having just watched Ant-Man Quantumania, like, recently. Which is a movie I didn't hate. But it utilizes the same technology that The Mandalorian does, and my God, when you watch things like The Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian, it's like a night and day difference with the volume, like screencast technology versus what's happening with like MCU, with like Thor and Ant-Man, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, I think that Jon Favreau and like the DPs that work on his Star Wars shows really seem to understand that you need to like blend foreground and background for it to really be a convincing technology. And I think that this show continues to like show what the volume can do and why it is a good tool to use. So I just wanted to point that out because I think the volume technology is kind of getting a bad reputation based on the most recent MCU movies, but I would say that I think maybe there's a learning curve to it. And that now, like 4 seasons into their storytelling, Jon Favreau's team really understands this technology and how to utilize it best.
It feels like I hadn't really heard about the volume until Mando season 1. Is that true? And did they if so, did they invent it? Like, so would they have a better inner
Well, I think he
knowledge?
used part of it on The Lion King, Jon Favreau.
Okay.
And realized what
sense.
the technology could do, and then decided to utilize it in a way that hadn't been done previously during Mandalorian season 1. And then between then, other projects have started using it too. Like the Batman used it for certain scenes during COVID. Yeah. And then obviously I think Thor, Love and Thunder and Ant-Man 3 used it as well. But the thing is, if you go back to Mandalorian season 1, I think it still looks better than those last 2 MCU movies I've said. But it doesn't look as good as it looks in this episode. It's like season 3, episode 1. So it's like, I think they're really starting to like utilize it properly. And I think the best way to do it is to utilize reflections. Like there's a scene in Mandalorian, this episode of season 3, where Grogu is like, little baby Yoda is like looking out of a window while they're in hyperspace. And you could see like the lights reflecting on the glass.
Yeah.
And you see it reflecting on the armor quite a bit. And it just looks so good whenever you utilize the reflections. Because that's something green screen can't do very easily, right?
Yeah, you generally have to create your own reflections with CG. I was going to ask if that particular scene was shot in the volume, if we knew that or not. I assumed it was because the reflections looked
to my
really
understanding, all of the Star Wars movies, since at least Solo and possibly before, have used this technology when doing the hyperspace stuff. Like, it's always outside of cockpits or windows of ships. That way, the blue lights actually shine on the windows and on the actors' faces. So I know that the Star Wars movies have been using this technology at least since Solo for those types of things. But I think The Mandalorian took it to another level.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks great. I didn't notice anything, but I'm actually, unless it's really, really bad, I don't really notice these things.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I noticed it a little bit in Quantumania. Like, it just feels like sometimes actors standing on a stage without touching anything or interacting with their environment a lot.
Well, you know what it kind of reminds me of a lot is like, when they used to use reverse projection.
Yeah, like in old movies, like when they're driving or something.
Yeah, it looks better than reverse projection at least, but I think it's very similar to that tool.
Yeah. Rear projection.
And I'm sure it'll only get better.
Yeah, rear projection. That's the correct term.
Yeah, because it's from behind. It's not played backwards like reverse projection would imply.
Exactly. That'd be awesome.
Just want to be clear. But yeah, okay. So I guess maybe it was like not knowing that the volume was used on Quantumania or Love and Thunder. Because I also just watched both of those recently. I just assumed it was the usual green screen CGI environment.
Right.
So it did feel like that versus what Mandalorian feels like. So I see what you're saying now.
Yeah. But anyways, there's not much else to talk about it for just one episode. I think it's a good recap. It catches you up on if you didn't watch Book of Boba Fett, which I hear a lot of people complaining about because a lot of stuff happened. But I'm also not convinced that those people didn't actually watch Book of Boba Fett and are pretending to not know what's going on.
Oh, right.
Audiences are pretty smart these days. I think we understand the concept of a shared universe.
I wonder what the ratio actually is of people that are like, that skipped Book of Boba Fett.
I bet not that many. They may not have liked it, but I bet they still watched it.
Sure.
Yeah. I have a question. Based on the opening scene, are most of those Mandalorians bad fighters and dumb?
It's just a big lizard.
Yeah,
I know.
I don't know how you go about fighting such a creature.
In my opinion, you don't. And the methods that
You
they
just run.
Yeah.
They had a cave.
Yeah, the methods that they tried were just so obviously bad. I was like, what? Don't. So I expected
Maybe it's
more.
because...
Well, they
I
are
think
a warrior culture. Maybe it would have been dishonorable to back away, even though they knew they were effed.
Yeah, maybe that's fair.
I also think they have like their Beskar armor. And, you know, like after seeing Book of Boba Fett, I feel like that Beskar armor can get you through a lot. So maybe those guys that got like chomped down, you know, they'll come out now because, you know, like they're wrapped in Beskar armor. So they didn't get
It
hurt.
kept Boba alive in that Sarlacc pit.
Yeah.
It's true.
So
Maybe I'm
maybe
the
they're
dumb
just
one.
bad fighters because they have the Beskar armor to lean on.
Oh, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't have a protector on his phone because that enables him to drop it. If he doesn't use the protector, then he won't drop the phone.
There you go. Plus, we've seen Din Djarin's strategy in the past. I mean, I think all the way going back to season 1, the dude just likes to run down a hallway when people are shooting at him.
That's true. He just
Take
he's
all the
got the
lasers he
Beskar
can.
armor. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways.
Anyways, anything else about Mando season 3, episode 1?
I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, I am too. Okay,
I'm excited
and I
to see
guess
where
with
this
that.
podcast goes.
Wait, what?
I'm excited to see where this podcast goes.
Oh, I bet I know. I bet we review a movie soon.
Yeah. It's a safe bet.
All right, and with that, I think we should move into our Casually Criterion review for The Third Man, starting now.
Heard of Harry Lime?
Best friend I ever had.
He's kaput. Go home, Martins. You don't know what you're mixing in. As soon as I get to the bottom of this, I'll get the neck lane.
You're wrong about Harry. You're wrong about everything.
Come out, whoever you are.
You never should have gone to the police, you know.
All right. So as always with our Criterion films, they are older films. They've been out for a while, usually decades, for the films that we review. So we will not be doing our usual spoiler-free section up front like we do for our newer releases. So starting now, this is your spoiler warning. We may jump right into the conversations, spoiling things from the word go. So pause the podcast now. If you haven't seen The Third Man, go watch it, come back, and finish listening.
That's right. So The Third Man was directed by Carol Reed. It stars Joseph Cotten, Orson Welles, and Alida Valli. The IMDb synopsis says, a pulp novelist, Holly Martins, travels to shadowy post-war Vienna only to find himself investigating the mysterious death of an old friend, Harry Lime.
Yes.
Yeah, that is accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
All right.
so I believe I chose this movie.
That's
You
correct.
sure did.
I did, and it won, so I guess I should go first.
That's the standard.
Yeah,
and I
it is.
think we should stick to it.
Yeah, it's not my vanity, it's just the normal practice.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is my 4th or possibly 5th time watching this movie, but it's my first time in probably 13 years,
Wow.
at least, or more. So essentially, it's kind of like watching it a second time, because I watched it really close together back in the day. And yeah, I mean, not to say anything like that crazy, but like obviously the cinematography is great in this. Awesome use of shadows, really wonderful film noir techniques. The scene with Harry Lime standing in the doorway is just pretty much like iconic. Like if you have seen this movie at all, I don't think you could forget the first shot of Orson Welles in this movie. I had forgotten there were so many Dutch angles in this. And I was thinking of, oh my gosh, who's the director that uses Dutch angles all the time? Who did John Adams and The King's Speech?
Oh, man.
Hooper?
Tobe Hooper?
Yes.
No, not Tobe Hooper.
Tom Hooper?
Tom Hooper sounds right. Tobe Hooper,
someone check me on that.
Tobe Hooper did Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think. Or Tobe Hopper. Tom Hooper for King's Speech.
Yeah, okay, so Tom Hooper does all the Dutch angles. And I think, I'm not always a big fan of when they're used like that. I think sometimes they can be used a bit much. Not so in this movie. I think it adds actually a lot of tension and a style to this movie. Also, I think that this is one of the great twists that still holds up to this day and doesn't feel cheap like a lot of twists can. And I think that's probably because the movie takes its time. It doesn't rush it. And I think as a result lands with like maximum impact whenever it actually happens. But I'll keep it there. I will just say that this movie, I think, is just absolutely incredible. Carol Reed directed the hell out of it. And it just holds up. It's just such a good movie. It's probably one of my favorite noirs. But it doesn't really necessarily feel like a noir at all times to me. It doesn't have a lot of the staples of what you think of when you think of noir. And it's like it almost reminds me of like an old like David Fincher could have directed this movie kind of. You know what I mean? It just feels kind of classy. I don't know how else to describe it. But anyway, I'll leave it there. Justin, what do you think about The Third Man?
Yeah, so I believe this is my third time to watch The Third Man.
Fitting.
If you can believe it.
I do.
Yeah. It is entirely believable.
Yeah, I wouldn't lie for the sake of that joke because it's not a very good joke.
Yeah, I didn't even realize it was a joke until you explained it.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, as you said, Mike, there's unforgettable sequences in this movie, particularly the light coming on in Orson Welles' face. The sewer chase towards the end to me is iconic. The music sticks in my head. Like I said, this is maybe my third time to see this movie. But, similar to you, it's probably the first time I've seen it in around about a decade, I would guess. And immediately, the music was like familiar, even though it's not like I don't listen to the score ever. It's so good. It's like iconic, I think.
Yeah. Sidebar, fun fact. My grandma once told me she loved a song called Third Man Theme. And, and when I was like, when she was a little girl, she like listened to it all the time. And she would get excited when they played it on the radio. And I asked her if it was the score to the movie The Third Man. And she had no idea what the movie was.
Oh, wow.
But
yeah.
But I played her the score and she recognized the Third Man theme. So the theme apparently has a life all on its own and a fan base all on its own, separate from the movie.
Yeah,
Which
so makes sense. It's mostly sort of at like a dissonance with the vibe of the movie.
Sure.
Which is part of what makes it work really well. It's not quite as crazy as like after like years of watching Austin Powers and going back and watching what is it, The Pawnbroker? That is where they took the music for Austin Powers from, and it's a serious drama movie with the Austin Powers theme music over it.
Yeah, it's very weird.
It's not quite that level, but it's interesting. Like the opening sort of sequence sort of reminded me almost like the opening of a Wes Anderson movie in some ways.
Yes. You stole it. Wes
whoops.
Anderson is definitely something I thought about this time.
Yeah, and I hadn't really thought about that before, but sorry, I won't steal more specific
it's fine.
points like that. But yeah, this movie is great. The mystery's really, really fun, and it's fun to watch again, kind of knowing what happens, because I did remember that, okay, Harry Lime is Orson Welles, and he's going to show up later in the movie. But what I find interesting is, at least for me, there's not a ton of like things that you go back and when you rewatch that are like, hey, this is your second time to view it. See what we did here, where we planted these seeds.
Right.
Like it doesn't work like that. Which
no,
I
it's
find
just like
interesting.
a natural unfolding. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like, oh, if you were paying attention, you could have figured this out. Like for better or worse, I guess. But for me, that's better. I find it an interesting rewatch, unlike most mysteries with a twist, because you just watch it again unfold without, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a totally unique experience, like you're watching a different movie, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and the performances are great. Like, to me, this is Orson Welles' best role, like my favorite role to watch him in, even though it's so short. And even compared to Citizen Kane, I think his role is just so fun in this. And
well, he nails it too. I mean, it is Orson Welles, I think, that character.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as we know, I guess.
I mean, maybe that has to do with, a lot of times when we're watching Orson Welles these days, it's usually, I think, in his own movies. Not always, but usually. And maybe there's something to the idea of him just showing up to be in someone else's movie and do it the best he can.
Yeah.
Versus doing everything else. Because, I mean, he's always great. I've never seen I've seen some where he's better than others, but, like, he's not bad in Citizen Kane by any stretch of the word, right? But
no,
absolutely.
but here, there's something so charismatic about him, so magnetic about, like, when he's on screen, you're just, like, you're excited to see what he's going to say. He's got a presence,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just feels like the part he was born to play, like last Criterion episode we did on the waterfront for Brando, right? Mm-hmm. And it just feels like that, that sums them up, right? Or like James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause.
Sure.
At least that's the way it feels to me, despite Citizen Kane. The other thing, the ending of this movie is incredible. Like the last shot, I've also never forgotten that. So to me, this movie is just full of things that, like, after one viewing, well, more than likely stick with you for life. Because it's just that good and that, like, impactful when things happen. And I'll leave it there. I say I love this film. I think it's great. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot of great things about this film. The Zithar, especially this time, because especially, like, I feel like the first 2/3 of this film, this is also a film that I've seen quite a few times. But the first 2/3 of this film felt really a lot funnier this time, and the Zithar just adds so much to that. Like a lot, like if it was some, like, serious orchestra or, like, music playing, I feel like it would be asking you to take it seriously. And the Zithar is versatile, and it kind of allows you to, like, these characters are, like, kind of over the top or idiosyncratic, which is kind of where you get the Wes Anderson stuff. Mm-hmm. But the Zithar, I think, is almost more important than Orson Welles in this film. I think it's maybe the most important thing in this film, because I think it really makes it what it is. It is able to, during the chase sequence in the tunnels, like, it's able to use that suspense, and it's not goofy then, but at the beginning it's just goofy, or it feels goofy or silly, and it's allowing you to, okay, I understand what this movie is trying to do, if that makes sense. And I really think that's that the Zithar is the most important thing about this movie. But I like Joseph Cotten in this quite a bit. I feel so bad because, like, I feel like he's really good in this, but his character is kind of, he's also really silly, but and kind of goofy and kind of he doesn't know what he's doing. And it sucks because for Joseph Cotten, because Orson Welles is in there for like 10 minutes and everybody remembers The Third Man as an Orson Welles film, because he steals the show. But it's kind of that's what the movie's supposed to do, when Harry Lime shows up, he steals it from the rest of the cast. Such a big deal. I really like this film a lot. Let's just dive into it. Let's go further into it.
So I disagree with you. I don't think the Zitar is the most important thing.
Okay.
I think the cinematography's gotta top it, because the way this film is shot, it's so good.
I think I don't necessarily disagree with you.
Like the way the cobblestones on the street and the walls of the sewers and everything just reflect the light, and the smoke in the composition on display here. Look at other movies around this time. It's like, maybe this movie had some great predecessors, things like Citizen Kane, right? That kind of changed the way movies were done. But in 1949, this has still got to be one of the best looking movies. The way that entire last sequence is put together is just I don't know how big the location where they actually shot all this is, but you're so turned around and claustrophobic in that last chase sequence, and there's not one shot in there that is not just really good looking, from a composition standpoint and from a lighting standpoint.
Yeah, I actually, the other thing I was reminded of by that chase sequence was 2001, because it's just a bunch of images kind of going through, that 2001, where he's going to the time, it's just a bunch of lights and stuff. But it kind of reminded me the same way, because it's just a bunch of, you don't know exactly where anybody is in this tunnel.
The sound design is you basically just hear voices and footsteps and running, and you have no idea where they're at.
Yeah. So I thought that was an interest. That was just a thing that popped in my head. It's very different, but it kind of just a bunch of images in both of these situations.
To that same point, what it reminded me of was the end of John Carpenter's Halloween.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, at the end, whenever Michael Myers disappears and you just hear the breathing. And you hear the breathing over every shot of location that was visited previously in the movie, so you have no idea where he's at.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, just a sequence of images with an audio clip that doesn't necessarily go with that image, That's what's going on a lot in that chase sequence, where you just, when you're looking from Harry Lime's point of view and he's looking at all the possible directions he could go when he's in the sewers, and all you hear is just people running, and they're after him. And any way he goes, he's probably going to run into somebody. But because of the way the sewers are and the echoes, he has no idea which direction is actually free of people.
A good one.
Yeah.
And I think it's the editing too, as much as how great these shots look and the sound design, but just the cutting is so fast at points. Just throughout the whole chase sequence, especially the part where we're kind of mainly talking about where he's stuck with all the different tunnels, and we cut to the different shots. But even before that, it's cut so frenetically, in the way that 2001 is. That sequence is sort of mesmerizing and sort of trippy. It lulls you into its headspace, right?
Yes. Yes.
This does that as well with its editing and sound design.
And because of that, you're completely disoriented as well.
Yeah.
So real quick, back to the first statement of that. But I would argue that the cinematography is a 10 out of 10. But without the Zitar setting the mood, it wouldn't the rest. It would be a completely different movie, and I don't know if it would work as well.
Yeah. Did your grandma tell you that she loved the cinematography of a film called The Third Man, or did she tell you she loved the theme?
Yeah. Again, she never saw the movie or knew what it was. I think she just thought it was called Third Man Theme, and the theme wasn't tied to anything at all.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, I think we could probably agree that both are great.
Yes, I would definitely say that.
There's the obviously the sequence of the Orson Welles is something I've never forgotten. This and thing, that closing shot to me, that sort of sort of symmetrical view down that road going to the cemetery or coming from the cemetery, however you want to view it.
Yeah.
That shot is iconic to me, like the way it's framed, everything about it.
The leaves.
Yeah. It's
this time when watching it, I just could not help but think to myself, like, what is Joseph Cotton's plan here? What is Holly Martin's hope to achieve by waiting for her?
I mean, I'm assuming his intention is to try and apologize in some way.
Yeah, but that just seems so... Like, watching it now, like, when I was younger, I thought to myself, maybe he's got a chance to apologize. Watching it now, I'm like, dude, why are you even showing up? Like,
yeah.
She's not interested. Go away.
Which actually that was another thing I really liked this viewing too, is like this morally gray, like Harry Lime is a bastard, like he's not a good person.
No.
But yet they are still kind of like, I don't know what he was like before, but he must have been a swell guy, because they're still like, he's like killing children or keeping medicine from children. And they're like, you know what? I don't want to be the one that takes him to jail, Mm-hmm. And I like that morally gray aspect to it, what do you guys think about that those morals that are happening kind of in the last third of the film, about whether or not they should turn Harry Lime in? Because I would turn either one of you guys in if you did the same thing Harry Lime did.
Sure, but I think part of it is Harry Lime has a certain amount of charisma and honesty about him, despite being a shady guy. He has admirable qualities that a lot of people don't possess, and he has something magnetic about him that inspires loyalty to a degree, right? Which is, a lot of sociopaths or like, bad people possess those kinds of qualities,
Sure.
Right. And I think for me, a big thing I took away from the film, just sort of thematically overall, is the way the world works, or I guess a certain place works post-war, right?
Right.
And I guess people can take advantage of that. People are disadvantaged. There's a lot of uncertainty, I guess, and a lot of opportunity if you're willing to step up and take it, and maybe even struggle. And to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but both the girl whose character's name I can't remember, Anna, and Joseph Cotton's character Holly, don't they both have something to gain? Isn't Holly coming to see Harry Lime because he's offered him like work and like help? Like, does he have?
Yeah, he was going to.
Yeah, he
write
came on the basis of a
his
job.
Charity.
Yeah. And then obviously with Anna, he helped her get the passport, right? So she doesn't get deported or whatever back to Russia. So, so yes, he was like maybe a great person, an old friend, but they had something to gain with him being around.
But that's also before they know what he did,
Right. True, but
but that doesn't negate their feelings towards him, right?
Yeah.
Like, it just adds complications to it. And obviously Joseph Cotton, his character, Holly, is like very conflicted throughout the entire process.
Yeah.
Like, even up to the end, I don't know that he knows he did the right thing.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe that's why he waits at the end, is so that he can be told that he did the right thing,
Yeah, wrong audience to seek that answer from.
Sure.
Yeah. I also I find Joseph Cotton's character Holly really, really interesting, and I think maybe one of the things that sets us apart from other film noirs that I've seen.
Sure.
Maybe I'm thinking too narrowly about film noirs, but it's not Humphrey Bogart who's a private eye who's hired to like go seek this out, or Jack Nicholson in Chinatown, right?
Right.
Who does this sort of like dig deep. The guy's a writer. Like, he writes cheesy Western novels, to my understanding.
Yeah. He's a writer who, like, fancies himself maybe smarter than he is or more capable than he is, like, when he's there.
Yeah. Yeah, he that's the first part of this movie is so good because he bumbles his way into this, you know, like it's that kind of like ugly American type thing, you know. He like is constantly mispronouncing everybody's names, you know, like and you know, just kind of ugly Americaning his way through this thing, and it's so funny to watch. Like, everybody else is smarter than him, and then in fact he actually gets the porter killed, you know, like by digging deeper. I really like that aspect too. And that's, of course, once the porter dies, that's when things get more serious, and it's not as goofy as it is before that.
Sure. Yeah, I enjoy the back and forth between him and the Major Calloway.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I think that character is really great. And I can't watch him. I can't remember if this is the first time I've seen this movie since seeing Inglourious Bastards, but I can't watch him without thinking of Michael Fassbender's character from Inglourious Bastards. They're like, I swear that's exactly what they went for, was imitating this particular character, both in look and like even just the accent and dialect.
Right. And obviously we're talking about Trevor Howard, you know, who is also in like Brief Encounter.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And like many other movies. Great actor.
Yeah. Have you seen a lot of like the bigger like English films from this period? I think you've seen him for sure.
Yeah,
but Superman.
I like him. I like the his bodyguard, his like sergeant, whatever he is.
Mm-hmm.
I love the
Sergeant Payne.
Sergeant Payne. Thank you. I like the scene where he's like threatening. Or Joseph Cotton's threatening Major Calloway, and the sergeant like punches him and then immediately picks him up and is like, I had to hit you, you know?
Yeah, he's so amicable.
Yeah.
Like, and he loves his books, you know, like that's he's awesome. Yeah. All the characters, these like little side characters,
that's what I was about to say.
So much fun.
Yeah, I was about to say every character feels so full.
Yeah.
Even ones that get such brief amount of time. Like these characters don't have to have that much going on. Most of them. But they do, and that shows that there was care put into this thing, and a lot of thought put into it, to where each character kind of has like their own thing, you know, like maybe not an arc per se, but
there's something going on beneath the surface of each character, and you're, you know, like, yeah.
And they each feel pretty distinct, like they stick out, and they kind of have to, because the movie doesn't necessarily hold your hand too much with
no. In fact, dialogue. If you leave the room for 10 minutes, you might have to rewind it, which is not always the case for a lot of older movies, plot-wise.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure if once we realize that Harry is still alive, nobody says, "Oh, so you were the third man."
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I don't think I actually realized who the third man was, because it was never that important, but like till this most recent viewing. I'm like, oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know that I really, I mean, it's been a while, but I don't know that I really paid that much attention cared, you know, like,
yeah. What's just,
I don't know.
It's interesting to me that it's the title of the movie. It's the crux of what Holly's trying to get down to once he finds out from the porter guy that there was a third man. He's like going around, who was the third man? Who was the third man? And when he finds out, the movie never just tells you, and he doesn't say it, and nobody does. So like, I guess it's understandable.
There's not like, Harry Lime, you're still alive. You must be the third man.
They never. You were the third man carrying the body of that other guy that's
all
in
along.
The coffin. Yeah, that doesn't happen, which is cool. I mean, it's the sign of a confident film.
Yeah, I was actually watching the clip of Peter Bogdanovich talking about this movie. And obviously, because I think everyone who has ever seen an interview with Peter Bogdanovich knows this, because he can't help but name drop, but he was friends with Orson Welles.
Also, he wears an ascot.
Yeah. And anyways, he mentions about how Orson Welles said that this was the best star part ever written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they talk about him for like an hour before he shows up, and by the time he shows up, he's just got to, you know, sit there and soak up the stardom, I guess. But anyways, you know, maybe he's not wrong.
Well, his character's already been built.
Sure.
Because all the other characters have talked about him.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything other than just be a presence, be there at that point.
Totally. And just don't be a bad actor and you'll probably be good. But I think that's underselling him because Orson Welles has a presence about him that really, like I said earlier, is kind of magnetic. But I'm reminded, this conversation reminds me of this thing I read from Roger Ebert one time. And I think it was just like on his website, like his little blog he kept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he was talking about how he would go to university sometimes and go shot by shot through a film with a class of students. And he said he was kind of getting discouraged because every time he would go there, the students would always want to do like Fight Club or whatever.
A new movie, yeah.
Yeah. And he would get kind of discouraged and be like, do they even have the patience to wait for the Harry Lime twist anymore? Like, would a group of modern day college kids, watch this film and enjoy it and not be bored before Harry Lime shows up, And I was thinking, there's two kinds of twists in films, and there's ones that are handled like Fight Club, and I won't be specific about what that twist is in case someone hasn't seen that movie. And then there's this way of handling a twist. And they do feel different.
Yeah.
And I think this is the much harder kind of twist to pull off. One that changes the entire story and drops like reality on the situation where the audience is like, oh my gosh, what's going on now? But without trying to blow your mind and make you rethink reality in general. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the difference between like feeling deceived or.
Right. And just like letting the story unfold,
Yeah, it does feel like until you started describing it as a twist, I never quite considered it a twist.
Yeah, because it feels a little better than that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can remember a time where I didn't know, Orson Welles was in this movie. Or I don't think there ever was.
Well, I would say the first time I was watching it, and I knew who Orson Welles was, but I didn't really understand what to expect of the movie.
Okay, yeah.
I remember the first time I saw Harry Lime pop out of there and being like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
And I just remember being excited to see where the rest of the movie went.
Sure.
It felt like a twist, but maybe it's not. Maybe a twist is the wrong word.
I think there's a different type of twist, too. We were deceived, but we were deceived along with the characters.
Yeah.
Where, like, if all the characters are in on it, then we're isolated and we're not part of the movie,
Sure.
So that might be part of it. I don't know. Yeah. But you also do rethink the movie because then if you go back and think, you're like, oh, well, that's obviously Orson Welles was or Harry Lime was the third man. And it doesn't point it out necessarily, but when you rewatch it or whatever, you can pick up on those things. Similar to like a thing like Fight Club. But You're right. I think it is a different feeling that you have.
So what do you guys think of the way the film reveals Harry Lime to us, like for the first time? Because if I remember correctly, we don't see a picture of him. We don't see like a flashback. We have no idea what he looks like, right?
Yeah.
So to me, I find it interesting because a modern film, and maybe most other films even of this time period, would say, okay, we have to show a photo of the main character of Joseph Cotten and Orson Welles together so that we know who Harry Lime was, so that the moment that light comes on and we see his face, we as an audience go, oh, that's the guy that's supposed to be dead, and we get to put it together.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this movie is that we only know that it's Harry Lime based on Joseph Cotten's reaction.
Yeah.
And I think that I think that like puts the emphasis on the performance, on Joseph Cotten's reaction, and makes us kind of pay more attention to that rather than be in our own heads and like shocking us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was about to say, because like when we first see him, we see like his feet, and then the cat approach like the shadows, right? And then it cuts back to Joseph Cotten basically confessing his love to Harry Lime's previous fling. right?
Mm-hmm.
And so even though we don't know who he is at the time, I think we're already kind of wondering and speculating because Harry Lime is present between those two characters, even though he's not in the room.
Sure. And she does say the cat only likes Harry, and we see the cat stroll up to its feet, or to the shadowy man's feet.
And just as he's trying to profess his love for this woman, Harry is still on the periphery, standing between them, even though he's not even in the same room. You know, he's present in the audience's brain during that, because we start to see the little clues building up right before that.
Yeah. I think it's just a sign of extreme confidence and like really well done storytelling that it doesn't have to do that, because like I said, I can't imagine another film not showing us what they look like before, because they
like setting it up in like early act 1 at least, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like you got to show something early before you set it up, because like other than the cat thing, I'm not sure that they do much to tell us this person is Harry Lime.
Right.
I mean, we know it's someone shady, right? We know it's someone dangerous potentially to Holly or whoever, but we don't necessarily know who it is. We only know who it is via the cat and Joseph Cotton yelling.
And Joseph Cotton's reaction.
Yeah. I'm impressed by that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah. Do we have anything else?
Trying to think.
Yeah.
I don't. The scene in the Ferris wheel sort of thing, I think is really great. The whole speech that Orson Welles gives in there.
Like if one of those dots stops moving.
Yeah. Like how many, if you got so many thousand per dot, how many dots would be too many?
Right.
Yeah. That was really interesting. And what was like the countries that have war gave us Einstein and so and so and so and so, and like
500 years of democracy gave us what was it?
The clock, the cuckoo clock,
the cuckoo clock. Yeah,
yeah, like the Switzerland or whatever piece gave us the cuckoo clock. Just that whole speech of what comes out of war, and the innovation is cool. I think I read or heard that Orson Welles wrote that.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, actually, I think Peter Bogdanovich said the same thing, which is that Orson Welles said that Carol Reed didn't need his input on direction. He was quite capable, but he said that he did ad lib or improvise or write the cuckoo clock scene.
Mm-hmm.
Which, who knows if that's actually accurate or not. Orson Welles was pretty full of himself.
Yeah. I don't have anything. I don't necessarily want to short shrift Alita Valley, but I mean, she's a great character. She's the crux of like the vibe of the ending of the movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Giving it that weight. She's really great too.
Yeah, I would say, I was going to say Joseph Cotton was the heart of the movie because Orson Welles gets all the credit, like Chris said. But at the same time, I think she's probably the heart. Joseph Cotton's just sort of the audience surrogate.
Yeah.
And he's also kind of a fool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't really necessarily think so the first time, but watching it this time, I sympathize much less with his character.
Yeah.
Even though I think he's great. And this was my first time becoming aware of Joseph Cotton, and he's awesome.
Oh, yeah? I don't know if I saw this or Citizen Kane first, but I agree.
I think I saw this first, honestly, but I can't remember, to be honest with you.
Probably not important.
No. Chris, you got anything else?
The thing I was thinking about was, like, what if you replace Joseph Cotton with, like, Cary Grant or Jimmy Stewart, two big stars of the time?
Way different energies, for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, if you put Jimmy Stewart in there, the whole time you know that he's going to do the right thing. Like, with Joseph Cotton, like, the right thing being to turn Harry Lime in. because of like who he is. And Cary Grant would be, like work for the silliness part of it, I think, a little bit better, maybe.
Yeah, Cary Grant would be trying to be adorable the whole time.
Yeah. And I think Cary Grant was actually considered for the Orson Welles part, the Harry Lime part, which would be interesting too. But ultimately, I really like Joseph Cotten because he is so blank. At least he doesn't have this persona that precedes him into a movie, like a Jimmy Stewart or a Cary Grant.
Yeah.
So I think Joseph Cotten is a really good actor from that era that I think we don't talk about enough.
Somewhere between Carl Malden and Cary Grant lies Joseph Cotten.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it does work. There's a lot of times, like in films, especially like indie films, where they can afford like one big actor to throw in there to like make the film marketable. Like that one actor sometimes is so distracting. Like I don't mind seeing, Paul Rudd and Ant-Man, right? But like if Paul Rudd's in like, a Spinal Tap movie or some type movie, like a mockumentary, like it suspends my disbelief, right? Like what works about Spinal Tap or whatever is that most of those people were unrecognizable at the time,
Yeah.
Not to dig too deep on like the mockumentary format itself, but just sometimes like that personality comes through, and I'd rather just see like unknowns. Like I almost think Frances McDormand is too big for a film like Nomadland, to use like a recent example. She's great in it, and she blends in, but it's almost like the movie would almost work better with an unknown person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I feel that way about Joseph Cotten in this. Not that he's unknown. He's just...
Nor was he unknown at the time.
Yeah, he's just...
He's no Cary Grant.
Yeah, he's not that huge personality.
Yeah, the reputation doesn't necessarily precede him.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's all.
Yeah, I think we reviewed The Third Man. I think we did it.
It's done.
Yeah. Okay. So next, we are each choosing a Criterion film to vote on Twitter. And the theme this time is female directors for Women's History Month. So who wants to kick us off?
Chris.
I'll go first.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So there's really only one choice, because we haven't really talked about the AFI list. And one movie shot to the top of the AFI list. It is the AFI list, right?
No.
Which list is it?
Sight and Sound.
Sight and Sound, yes. One movie shot to the top of the Sight and Sound list, and that is Jeanne Dillman, directed by Chantal Akerman. It's now the number one movie of all time, and I want to put it out there and see it dethrone Vertigo, my favorite movie of all time. So I'd like to see it and see what's going on with it. Yeah, I'm glad I got to go first and pick it, so that I steal it from you guys.
Chris, you can't pick this one because it won't fit in the Twitter poll character limit.
Oh, that's true.
Jeanne
Dillman, 23, Quoi du Commerce 1080 Bruxelles is the official title.
Yeah, that won't fit
and
in
I
there.
nailed it. Yeah.
So
Okay,
sorry.
I'll pick something else. You guys go.
Just kidding. We'll write Jenny Dillman and people will know. And that's probably a horrid pronunciation, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure I ruined it. I'm
Or
sorry.
they won't, because according to all the criticism, no one even heard of that movie before, and it's all because of wokeness or whatever that film got shot to number one. Did you guys not hear those complaints?
No.
Yeah. I don't...
Anyways, I don't want to give voice to them any more than necessary, but
Yeah.
it was a joke.
Yeah.
I think the one that Portrait of a Lady on Fire shot way up there. I don't know where it is exactly. Is it in the top 10? But like, that's a lot of weight for such a new movie to take. Like it's gonna. Anyways, but
Yeah.
Anyways, Justin, what is your pick?
Well, speak of the devil, I guess. Because
Oh, nice.
because that's my film is a Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Did we review this?
Celine Sciamma. So I just checked, and no, we did not. We talked about it in a News on the March on our Criterion episode on Dr. Strangelove.
Okay.
And actually, I wasn't even on that episode for whatever reason. I was gone, absent, so I didn't even get to talk about it. I know we talked about it because it made some of our best of the year list that year.
Yeah.
So we did talk about it some, but we have not done the in-depth review, and I haven't seen this movie since theaters, so...
well, that one will probably win.
Yeah.
I don't know. Gene Dillman, I think...
No.
It's pretty popular.
I guarantee you, Portrait of Lady on Fire will dwarf your pick.
What are you picking?
It'll dwarf mine, too, but I'm just saying, it'll definitely dwarf yours.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I just think that's the one that's got the name recognizability.
You're right, it does. But I think Gene Dillman being the top of the list...
You can even say the full name of the movie.
Well, that's because I've only called it Gene Dillman.
Anyways.
What's your movie, Mike?
Also, going off the Sight and Sound list, I'm going to choose a film by Claire Denis, because I think Claire Denis is always interesting and awesome. And this is another film that shot straight up there, I think to like number 2 or 3 or 4 or something like that, and that is Beau Travail.
Oh, yeah. Beau Travail, I think.
Travail, whatever. That's what I'm picking.
We're doing really good with pronunciation.
Oh. All right, well, I haven't seen either of your 2 picks, so...
Me neither. So I'm hoping
this
one
is
of
a
those
really
wins.
good... yeah, and they're all on the Sight and Sound list. That's really awesome, guys. Good job.
Yeah, to be honest, Mike from CineMusts made fun of me for not winning any of the polls recently, so I had to choose one.
That's why you went mainstream?
Yeah, I had to go mainstream. I had to pick the popcorn movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Portrait of a Lady on Fire, the crowd pleaser. The 4-quadrant film.
Yeah, it ticks all the boxes. I do love Portrait of a Lady on Fire, so...
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right,
in theory, these films are all good and there's no going wrong.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
Yeah, who knows? But go follow us on Twitter at Casual Cinecast. Vote there. By the time you're hearing this, that poll will be up there. It'll be open for several days, so go vote now. The link will also be in the show notes. And thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned to this channel. Our next episode will probably be Creed 3. So join us then.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.
Doei. That's Dutch for bye-bye. Actually, it'd probably be doei for bye-bye, but you get it.
I'm glad I waited for that.
Thanks.
Bye.